They say the sky belongs to the birds. They say the earth belongs to the living. And they say the underworld belongs to the ancestors. But in old Oyo, before the empire began to crack, before the horses grew tired, before the drums lost their laughter, there came a night when the sky, the earth, and the underworld all became one. That night, fire learned our names. It began with a scream. Not the scream of a woman giving birth, not the scream of a man dying in battle. No. This was older than both. It was a sound that felt like the sky tearing open, like thunder learning to speak. The children of Oyo ran indoors. The goats refused to move. The dogs hid their faces under clay pots as if shame could protect them. And every elder in the city, every man who had lived long enough to recognize the smell of omen, rose from his mat with one thought pounding in his chest. Something has awakened. In the palace of Oyo, the Alaafin sat up, sweat shining on his temples. The king of kings, the owner of crowns, the one whose name made neighboring towns bow, yet even he could not command the fear rising in his throat. He looked toward the courtyard where the royal drum slept. And he whispered, almost to himself, "Oron, what have you sent to me?" Outside, beyond the walls, beyond the farms, beyond the sacred groves where even hunters walked quietly, something moved. A shadow passed across the moon. Not a cloud. Not smoke. A living shadow. And when it roared again, the flames from the torches in the city bent toward the forest as if the fire itself wanted to kneel. That was the night the empire discovered it had been sharing the land with a beast older than kings. That was the night the story of Bashorun Gaa truly began. Oyo was not built by softness. Oyo was built by hoofbeats. By iron. By the long, bitter wisdom that says, if you want to live, you must be stronger than the next man. The empire was famous for its cavalry, men who rode like wind and struck like lightning. In the market, traders sold salt and cloth, beads and kola, while whispers of politics moved like invisible snakes between stalls. But the true heart of Oyo was not in the market. It was in the palace. The Alaafin ruled, yes. But he did not rule alone. Behind the throne stood the Oyo Messi, the council of chiefs who held tradition in one hand and power in the other. They could advise the king. They could restrain him. And if the gods and the people demanded it, they could remove him. And above them all, like the darkest cloud before rain, stood the man called Bashorun Gaa. He was not king. But kings feared him. He was not a god. But priests listened to him. He did not wear the crown. Yet the crown did not feel safe on any head without his approval. They said Bashorun Gaa had eyes like cold metal, eyes that looked at a man and calculated his death. They said he smiled like a man who already knew how your story ended. And in Oyo, stories often ended in blood. In the palace hall that morning, the Alaafin sat on his throne, wrapped in cloth that carried the colors of authority. Behind him stood guards with spears, faces stiff like carved wood. Before him stood the chiefs of the Oyo Messi. And among them, Bashorun Gaa stood as if the floor belonged to him. The Alaafin spoke first. Last night, he said, voice steady though his spirit shook, the city had a sound that does not belong to this world. The chiefs murmured. Bashorun Gaa did not. The Alaafin continued. My hunters report signs in the sacred forest. Burned trees. Broken stones. Tracks too large for any animal we know. A chief stepped forward. Kobiyisi, perhaps it is a spirit. Another said, perhaps it is the anger of the ancestors. The Alaafin's gaze fell on Bashorun Gaa. And what does Bashorun say? Silence stretched. Then Bashorun Gaa smiled. A king who hears a roar in the night, he said slowly, must decide quickly whether he is hearing a warning or an opportunity. The Alaafin narrowed his eyes. Speak clearly. Gaa stepped forward. When a thing powerful enough to shake the sky appears in our land, he said, it is either a weapon to be taken, or a curse to be destroyed. The chiefs murmured again, uneasy. The Alaafin's voice sharpened. And which do you advise? Bashorun Gaa's eyes glinted. Take it, he said. Then he added, almost casually. Before another kingdom does. The Alaafin leaned back, thoughts racing. Outside, the empire was strong, but strength attracts envy. Ife washed. Dahomey washed. Nupe washed. Ilorin washed. A weapon beyond human understanding could tilt the balance of power forever. But the Alaafin felt something else too. A cold truth. Bashorun Gaa was not thinking about the empire. He was thinking about himself. 3 days later, the Alaafin's chosen hunters entered the forest. They were not ordinary men. They were men who had killed leopards and lived. Men who could track an ant across dry soil. Men whose names carried the smell of danger. They carried charms. They carried blades. They carried prayers on their tongues. And leading them was a priest, an old Babalawo with white chalk on his face, eyes half closed as if he listened to spirits no one else could hear. The forest grew thick. The air became heavy. Even the birds stopped singing. Then they found it. A clearing where the earth looked melted. Trees snapped like bones. And at the center of it all lay a stone mound, cracked open like an egg. From within came heat. Not sunlight heat. Living heat. The Babalawo fell to his knees immediately. Ibi, he whispered. This is not an animal. The hunters stepped closer. Then the mound shifted. Something breathed. The ground trembled. And slowly, from the broken stone, a head rose. It was not a lion. Not a crocodile. Not a snake. It had scales like black iron, eyes like burning gold, and a jaw wide enough to swallow a manhole. A dragon. But in Yoruba tongue, the priest did not call it that. He called it Ayaina. The fire beast. The hunters froze. One man dropped his spear. The beast opened its mouth. And the air filled with smoke. The priest raised his staff, voice shaking but firm. Imi Isle, Imi Oron, he chanted. We come not as thieves. We come not as enemies. The beast eyes locked on him. Then, with a slow movement that felt like the turning of fate, it lowered its head. It listened. The priest swallowed. And whispered. It understands. When news reached the palace, the Alaafin did not sleep. He summoned his closest advisors. The Ora Ona Kokonfo, commander of the empire's armies, stood tall like a spear, eager and dangerous. The Oyo Messi sat with cautious faces. And Bashorun Gaa watched quietly. The priest described the beast. The size. The fire. The intelligence. The fear. When the priest finished, the Alaafin spoke. This power must belong to the throne. The Ora Ona Kokonfo nodded. Kobiyisi, with such a beast, we will crush Ilorin. We will silence Nupe. We will make the Dahomey kneel. The chiefs murmured approval. Then Bashorun Gaa spoke. And who, he asked softly, will control it? Silence. The Alaafin's jaw tightened. I will. Bashorun Gaa tilted his head. And will the beast obey you because you are king? The priest cleared his throat. Kobiyisi, it may not obey crown alone. It may obey spirit. The Alaafin leaned forward. Explain. The priest hesitated, choosing words like a man choosing which road avoids death. In our tradition, he said, there are powers that do not answer to wealth or title. They answer to blood, to destiny, and to binding. Bashorun Gaa's eyes sharpened. A binding ritual, he repeated. The priest nodded slowly. Yes. The Alaafin rose. Then prepare it. Bashorun Gaa smiled faintly. Of course, he said. Prepare it. But in his mind, another sentence formed. Prepare it for me. That night, while the palace slept, Bashorun Gaa moved. He was a man who understood that the world belonged not to the strongest, but to the most prepared. He summoned 2 men. One was a palace guard with greed in his heart. The other was a priest with fear in his bones. They met in a hidden courtyard, where the moonlight was thin. Bashorun Gaa spoke softly. The Alaafin believes the beast will belong to him, he said. But power does not belong to those who sit. It belongs to those who take. The priest trembled. Bashorun, this is sacred. Gaa stepped closer. You fear the gods? He asked. Yes. Gaa smiled. Then fear me more. The priest swallowed hard. Gaa continued. You will perform the binding ritual. But not for the Alaafin. The priest's eyes widened. Impossible. Gaa's voice became cold. I have removed kings, he said. Do you think I cannot remove priests? The priest bowed his head. The guard looked away, ashamed but silent. Gaa placed a small leather pouch in the priest's hand. Inside were cowries, gold, a charm, and something darker. On the day of the ritual, Gaa whispered, you will speak my name into the fire. The priest's hands shook. Gaa leaned in. And the beast will obey me. The day came. The entire palace gathered in the sacred courtyard. Drums beat slowly, like a heartbeat. Incense rose in curling smoke. The Alaafin stood in full regalia, surrounded by chiefs and warriors. The Ora Ona Kokonfo looked eager. The Oyo Messi looked nervous. And Bashorun Gaa looked calm. Then the gates opened. The beast entered. Chains thicker than a man's arm bound its limbs, carried by 20 warriors who sweated and shook under its weight. Its eyes burned. Its nostrils released smoke. The crowd stepped back instinctively. Even warriors feared it. The priest began the ritual. He drew symbols with chalk. He poured palm oil. He spoke words that were older than the palace stones. The Alaafin raised his hands. The priest turned to him. Kobiyisi, he said, step forward. The Alaafin stepped. The priest lifted his staff. By the ancestors, he chanted, by the earth, by the sky, let this beast be bound to the throne of Oyo. The beast roared. The ground shook. The priest's voice rose. Then, at the peak of the chant, his eyes flicked toward Bashorun Gaa. And his lips formed another name. Not loud. Not obvious. But spoken into the spirit of the fire. Gaa. The beast's eyes snapped toward Bashorun. The chains rattled. The crowd gasped. The Alaafin frowned. The priest's voice continued, louder now, as if forcing the world to accept what had been done. The beast lowered its head. Not to the king. To Bashorun Gaa. A silence fell so deep it felt like death. Then Bashorun Gaa lifted his hand. The beast obeyed. The Alaafin's face turned pale. The Oyo Messi exchanged terrified glances. The Ora Ona Kokonfo's hand went to his sword. And Bashorun Gaa smiled like a man who had just stolen the sun. Power changes men. But Bashorun Gaa was already shaped like power. Now he simply wore it openly. Within days, the empire felt the shift. Not through announcements. Not through speeches. Through fear. A chief who spoke against Gaa was found dead, burnt, though no fire touched him. A warrior who refused Gaa's orders disappeared. And in the palace hall, Bashorun Gaa began to sit closer to the throne than any chief had ever dared. The Alaafin watched him with hatred. But hatred is useless when your enemy holds fire. One morning, Bashorun Gaa stood before the chiefs. The empire is threatened, he said. Ilorin grows bold. Nup whispers. Dahomey sharpens its knives. The chiefs nodded. Gaa continued. We must strike first. The Ora Ona Kokonfo stepped forward eagerly. Give me the beast. I will ride it to war. Ga's eyes turned to him. Then he laughed softly. No, he said. The Kokonfo froze. Bashorun Gaa's voice hardened. I command the beast. He raised his hand. Outside the palace, a roar shook the air. The chiefs flinched. Gaa leaned forward. From today, he said, the empire will be protected by fear. And fear will be protected by me. The Alaafin stood. You speak as if you are king. Gaa turned slowly. His smile vanished. He walked toward the throne until he was close enough that the king could smell him. Then he whispered, loud enough for all to hear. Kobiyisi, you are king because I allow it. Silence. The Alaafin's fist clenched. And the empire understood something terrible. The throne had not gained a dragon. The dragon had gained a master. That night, the Alaafin met with his most loyal men. Not chiefs. Not council. Men who would die before betraying him. He spoke quietly. We cannot kill Gaa with steel, he said. He has fire. A loyal guard asked, Kobiyisi, can we poison the beast? The Alaafin shook his head. It is not a goat. The priest who had remained loyal whispered, there is another way. The Alaafin looked at him. The priest swallowed. If the binding is broken, the beast will be free. The Alaafin's eyes narrowed. And who survives a free beast? No one, the priest admitted. The Alaafin turned away, staring into the darkness. Then we need another beast, he said. The men froze. The Alaafin continued, voice low and dangerous. The hunter said the mound looked like an egg. The priest's eyes widened. You mean? Yes, the Alaafin whispered. There may be more. The king's gaze hardened. If Gaa has fire, he said, then I will find thunder. War does not always arrive with drums. Sometimes it arrives with whispers. Ilorin began to resist. The borders grew tense. Trade routes became unsafe. And one evening, messengers arrived at the palace, panting. Kobiyisi, they cried, Ilorin has attacked a border town. The Ora Ona Kokonfo slammed his fist. Let me ride. The Alaafin looked at Bashorun Gaa. Release the beast, he ordered. Gaa smiled. I will, he said. And for the first time, the empire saw what fire could do. The beast flew over the battlefield like a moving storm. It breathed flame. Horses screamed. Men scattered. Walls melted. Ilorin warriors, brave as they were, had never faced a sky that could burn. The battle ended quickly. Too quickly. When the beast returned, its scales glowed with heat, and its eyes looked satisfied. The people cheered. But the Alaafin did not. Because he saw the truth. The empire had won. Power makes enemies. Had become addicted to fire. But absolute power makes everyone always has a price. Bashorun Gaa began to suspect the chiefs. The chiefs began to fear him. The Alaafin began to plan. And the beast began to change. It grew more aggressive. More hungry. Less obedient. One night, during a festival, the beast roared unexpectedly. The chains snapped like thread. The crowd scattered in terror. The beast's fire burst into the air, wild, uncontrolled. Flames caught the roofs of houses. The wind carried sparks. Old Oyo began to burn. The Alaafin ran to the palace balcony, watching the city light up like a funeral. Bashorun Gaa appeared beside him. He looked at the burning city. And smiled. This, he said softly, is power. The Alaafin turned on him, rage boiling. This is madness. Gaa's eyes turned cold. Madness, he repeated. Kobiyisi, the world fears madness. And fear is obedience. The Alaafin reached for his sword. But before he could draw it, the beast roared above them. Gaa raised his hand. The beast calmed. The Alaafin's hand fell. And the king understood something worse than defeat. He was trapped in his own palace. The Alaafin's plan moved quickly after that. He sent his loyalists into the forest to find another egg. He sent secret messages to warriors who hated Gaa. He spoke to priests who feared the curse. And in the shadows, the empire gathered its courage. Then the night came. The palace doors closed. The drums stopped. The moon rose like an eye watching judgment. In the throne hall, Bashorun Gaa sat beside the throne as if he owned it. The chiefs stood trembling. The Alaafin walked in, calm like a man who had already accepted death. He raised his hand. A priest stepped forward and began to chant. Not the binding chant. A breaking chant. The air grew heavy. The torches flickered. The beast outside roared, uneasy. Bashorun Gaa rose. "What is this?" he demanded. The Alaafin spoke. "You stole fire," the king said. "Now fire will judge you." Gaa's face twisted. "Stop this," he roared. The priest continued chanting. Symbols were drawn. Palm oil spilled. Cowries clattered like teeth. Then the beast screamed. A scream so loud it shattered windows. The chains snapped. The beast burst into the courtyard, wild-eyed. It looked at Bashorun Gaa. And for the first time, it did not bow. Gaa's eyes widened. He raised his hand. "Obey," he commanded. The beast hesitated. The chant grew stronger. The beast's eyes flickered like a torch in wind. Then it roared. Not in obedience. In rage. It turned. And breathed fire, straight toward the palace. The Alaafin shouted, "Run!" Chaos exploded. The chiefs scattered. Guards screamed. The beast's fire swallowed pillars. The palace began to collapse. Bashorun Gaa stood frozen, watching the fire he controlled become the fire that judged him. He turned to the Alaafin, hatred burning. "You did this." The Alaafin coughed smoke, eyes fierce. "I ended you," he said. Gaa lunged for him. But the beast's tail smashed into the hall. Stone cracked. Men flew. And in the madness, Bashorun Gaa disappeared into flame and dust. The palace roof collapsed. The night became red. And the empire, once proud and powerful, fell into chaos. When morning came, Old Oyo was smoke. The people wept. The chiefs counted their dead. The Alaafin stood on a hill, looking down at the ashes of his city. Beside him stood the loyal priest, holding something wrapped in cloth. The Alaafin looked at it. "Is it real?" he asked. The priest nodded slowly. He opened the cloth. Inside was an egg. Black. Warm. Alive. The Alaafin's eyes narrowed. "Then the dragon era is not over," he whispered. Far behind them, deep in the forest, a roar echoed. Not the roar of the beast they had seen. A different roar. A younger roar. And the wind carried it like a promise. Or a threat.